Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my random thoughts on Thursdays. This week I'm going to be talking a little bit about the cycle of poverty and how I managed to get myself out of it. Okay, so if you follow my vlogs, I'm sure you may have seen my earlier vlog from last year where I talked about getting out of debt and how I got out of debt. And I just kind of wanted to go into a little bit more in a more serious direction and talk about poverty and some of my opinions about it and how I managed to get myself out of the cycle of poverty that my family had been in for many generations. My great-grandmother, for example, had to work as a social worker and her husband was a butcher as they were trying to raise 10 children, so they were obviously quite poor. And both my grandmother and mother died in poverty. They were born into and died in poverty. And my uncle, my mom's brother, was the first person in our family to actually bring himself out of poverty. He went into the Air Force and through the GI Bill was able to go to college and get a good job, and from there was able to bring himself out of poverty. And I am not ashamed to say that I had to get government assistance as well. I ended up with government grants that got me through college. And because of that, I was able to get myself out of poverty by being able to pull myself through college and ultimately get a good career and get myself out of poverty. And I'll talk about that a little bit first in terms of how I managed to do it, because there's such a debate going on right now online. Various forums I frequent talk about it quite a bit in terms of, gee, do we tax the rich more to help the poor more, or you know, how do we solve this problem of poverty? And I honestly don't think it's as simple as just handing money over to people. There's a lot of people out there who think, yeah, we just need to give the poor more money and they'll be less poor and everyone will be happy. But it's not as simple as that. It really isn't. I mean, yes, I got money from the government to help me pay for college, but it was ultimately up to me to go to my classes and pass my exams and graduate. I could have not gone to my classes and failed them and failed my exams and not graduated. And for the semesters I went, that money that the government gave me would have been a complete waste. And I don't know if they would have required me to pay it back. I don't think they would have. And so it's a twofold problem. Is one, yes, it's important to help people who need help, especially those who really want to get out of poverty. But there's so many people out there, I won't say it's the majority, I really won't, because I really don't know what the statistics are, but there are people out there that no matter how much you help them, they're always going to stay poor. Just because either they just have the wrong mindset or they're happy with where they're at. I can't imagine being happy there, but for example, I knew a person in the neighborhood where I grew up in Chicago, who was homeless. And we gave him sandwiches and food because we ourselves were poor, so we couldn't give him money. But I remember my grandmother and I being at the bank one day, and it was near the end of summer, getting close to winter, and he had a huge roll of money that he was depositing into a savings account. And we found out that this man was basically a professional homeless person. He would get anywhere from $20 to $100 a day in donations, and he would just save it. And he would do that only during the summertime. We never did see him in the winter. And what he would do is in the wintertime, he would take that money and he'd rent himself a hotel room or a small apartment or something, and he would live off of the money that he got donated during the summer. And he had no intention of ever not living on the street. He said, you know, why go out and work when I can just sit in the sun and enjoy myself? And yeah, sure, sometimes it rains and whatnot, but you know, I can make money. And you know, when it's bad weather, I'll just change into my nicer clothes and go to a coffee shop for the day instead. And so there are people out there like that who honestly are content with where they're at in life. Another story I have is when I was an 8th grade teacher in Chicago. I was in inner city school, and I asked my students one day, I was like, what are your plans for the future? And one kid raised his hand and said, well, at 16 I'm going to drop out of school and I'm going to go on welfare like my parents and not do anything. I mean, that was his plan, because his parents, I mean, they've got welfare, they got free housing, they got clothing donations, and they got free food from the government, and or the not necessarily free food. Sometimes, you know, some of the folks would get like the government cheese donations, that kind of thing, but a lot of them were on food stamps, that kind of thing. And that was their goal in life. They said, you know, the kids were honest with me and said, well, why should we go to work every day and work hard and, you know, and have less than what we could have if we just relied on the government to give it to us instead? You know, which is a good point, is like, if you're given everything, where is the incentive and the motivation to go out and strive to do better or have a better life if you have all of your necessities taken care of? That's not to say that welfare isn't necessary, because it is. There are people out there that need it, but there are also people out there like those kids who were planning on taking advantage of it, who didn't really need it. They were able-bodied, they were intelligent, they could have had a chance of even going to college, but they were like, well, why bother? What's the point? You know, they saw their parents doing this. This is what they were doing. They were going to do. They had no one in their life encouraging them to do something else. And I told them, it's like, at the time that I was doing this, was like in the mid-90s, there was a lot of talk of welfare reform in Chicago, and I remember some talk of just eliminating welfare entirely, which obviously never happened. But I said to the kids, it's like, well, what do you think you would do if they got rid of welfare? They were like, we never thought of that. You know, it was a shocking concept to them at the time. And let me just say that for the next couple of weeks, I got a lot more consistent homework turned in from those students, because all of a sudden their gears started going. It's like, yeah, well, maybe I need to prepare for maybe having a job in the future, because maybe I'm gonna need one. So at any rate, I mean, yes, I'm kind of rambling topic to topic here a little bit, but these are stories that stick with me when it comes to the whole debate about poverty and helping the poor and things like that. I mean, absolutely, there's people who need help. Absolutely, like disability is very, very much an important thing. Unemployment, which isn't welfare. A lot of people think it's welfare, but it's actually a different part of the system. It's still money from the government to help people who need it, but it's not quite the same as welfare, even though I can see how people would see it as a form of welfare. I do understand that. Welfare to a degree is absolutely needed for people. I don't ever see those kind of programs ever going away, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily, in its current form, helping people get out of poverty. It's kind of helping perpetuate the problem a little bit. Thankfully, from my perspective, when I was growing up, and, you know, as poor as my family was, it's like, you know what, I don't like this. This sucks. I see people who are better off, and I want to be there. I don't want to be poor. And so I worked hard in school. I got good grades. I was stupid and I didn't take the SATs, and so I didn't qualify for any scholarships, unfortunately. But thankfully my family was poor enough that I qualified for the government assistance, the Pell Grant, and there was a state of Illinois grant that I got, and that paid for my college enough so that I could get my degree, and I got a teaching position, and eventually it allowed me to save up enough money so I could move out to Colorado and you know, things kind of worked from there, and ultimately I ended up getting a better career and getting a master's degree, and I just step by step I pulled myself out of that poverty. And I had a little bit of help, and I needed that help, and there are people out there that need help to get there. If I didn't have the money to go to college, I might never have gone. I might have been stuck at a dead-end job, you know, hopefully maybe being a secretary or something, you know, rather than just working in retail or food service, which would have been my other potential lots in life. I'm glad that I didn't get stuck doing that, and I'm glad that I had the government assistance to get there, but at the same time, the onus was on me to actually go to my classes and pass those exams and graduate. If I hadn't put the work or the effort in, you know, I wouldn't have gone any further than I was either. I guess that's my point, is that it's not a black and white issue. It's not just like giving people money and all of a sudden they won't be poor anymore. If that was the case, then all of the people out there who have won the lottery wouldn't have, you know, would actually still be rich. I believe, okay, I don't know the exact statistics, but I believe a significant majority of people who have lottery winnings, they're back in poverty within a year or two of winning, from my understanding. And it's because a lot of these people were poor to begin with and didn't understand how to manage the money when they won it, and they just kind of went on a spending spree, spent it all, and had all these tax implications they didn't understand because no one taught them or told them about them. And so just throwing money at the problem of poverty isn't the solution. I think education is a big part of it. Educating people and having them understand how to manage money, how to not just get out of poverty, but how to stay out of poverty. Because, you know, people will get themselves into debt and everything else, and just don't understand how to get into the mindset of being not poor, if that makes any sense. Bottom line, at the end of the day, it's not a simple, there is no simple solution for the problem. Alright, well, thanks for listening to my rambling rant today, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Take care, bye-bye.